Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Boneddigion a boneddigesau. Cyd aelodau, y plaid annibyniaeth, y Deyrnas Unedig, prynawn da I chi gyd. That's Welsh for hello. And now, thank you so much for inviting me to speak at this conference today, and thank you even more for actually allowing me onto the platform to give the speech. And I'm delighted to be back in Bolton, where 58% of the people voted for Brexit. And to be in this wonderful stadium, which until recently, you may know, was the Reebok Stadium. And Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, was a massive supporter of Brexit and an integral part of the Vote Leave campaign. So it's very appropriate that we're here today. Well, 2016 was a great year for the United Kingdom. I think it will go down in history along with other memorable dates like 1215, 1688, 1815, because it was the year in which we began to recover our national independence and to restore our parliamentary democracy. And nothing, absolutely nothing in the life of a nation could be more important than that. But of course, it's going to bring a massive change for UKIP in the kind of debates that we are going to have in the future. Because now, or once we finally leave the EU, our focus is going to be entirely on what happens within the United Kingdom. And in Wales, I do believe that the breakthrough that we made in the Assembly elections last May shows us the way to go, because we are now a powerful force within the national legislative institution of Wales, and we can do the same in the House of Commons as we are doing in Wales by electing more members of Parliament, and the next step on that, of course, is the Stoke by-election on Thursday of next week. So we are fundamentally in the mainstream politics of the United Kingdom, and that is the way UKIP must go. We are not just going to be a political pressure group. We are an integral part of the parliamentary institutions of this country, the institutions that make the laws that we have to obey. And we have to be part of that process. We have opened the door in Wales, and Douglas Carswell has opened the door in Westminster, and of course Mark Reckless also. He can't be here today because he is playing the role of an Assembly member in Cardiff. All the chairman of committees, and Mark is the chairman of the Environment and Rural Affairs Committee in Cardiff, they are scrutinising Carwyn Jones, the First Minister of Wales. Not a very pleasant task, scrutinising him, but nevertheless, that is what they're doing today. And so we are playing a practical role in the government of Wales, just as our members of Parliament play a practical role in the government of the United Kingdom. And the other parties in Cardiff know that we're there, and they don't like it up 'em, let me tell you. You may have noticed, if you've watched any of the television footage of the Assembly, that Leanne Wood doesn't really like me very much. And I wouldn't be so ungentlemanly as to say that I reciprocate, but that may well be the truth. But there we are. 2017 is an important year for me because I shall celebrate my golden anniversary as a fully paid up Eurosceptic. Because I joined the Anti-Common Market League in July 1967. And I hardly ever dared to believe that I would be able to say this, but I have seen the promised land. And in 2 years' time, we shall be out of this appalling institution now called the EU, and we will begin to correct all the mistakes that have taken place in the last 43 years. I joined as a schoolboy at the Amon Valley Grammar School at Ammanford in Carmarthenshire, and now, it is in Wales, yes? Now the wheel has come full circle because I'm back there, and my region is Mid and West Wales, which covers 75% of the landmass of Wales. I represent 2% of the UK population and 20% of its sheep. And And I fought the Carmarthen East constituency, in which I grew up, in the election last May as well. And thinking back 50 years, I see that a number of sinners that I grew up with are now repenting. David Davis, for example, who defeated me for the post of chairmanship of the Federation of Conservative Students in 1971 or 2 it was, when he was a cheerleader for Edward Heath, taking us into the European Union, or European Economic Community, as we then called it. But sinners that repent, I think, are very welcome to our cause, and I think he's doing a pretty good job as the Secretary of State for exiting the European Union. Andrew Neil was somebody else who defeated me, I think, for the chairmanship of the Federation of Conservative Students. He was an even more enthusiastic supporter of going into the common market in those days, but he also has seen the light since. This doesn't seem to have been the journey that the Labour Party has taken, because 50 years ago we had the likes of Michael Foot and Neil Kinnock and Tony Benn, who were actually for coming out of the EEC in the referendum in 1975, and now the Labour Party is entirely the other way. Every single Labour Assembly member in Cardiff was a Remainer. Every single Plaid Cymru Assembly member in Cardiff was a Remainer. The old political establishment in Wales are totally unreconstructed. And Jeremy Corbyn's opponent for the leadership of the Labour Party, Owen Smith, who is the Member of Parliament for Pontypridd, of course, he's not only a Remainer, he actually wants a second referendum, and he's going to do everything he possibly can to try to frustrate the process legally of taking Britain out of the EU, despite the result of the referendum last year. Now, in Wales, of course, we've had a Labour government for the last 20 years, ever since the election, the Assembly was created. And that is a record of totally unrelieved failure. Wales is poorer relative to everywhere else in the country today than it was 20 years ago. Wales was second from bottom in the regions and nations of the United Kingdom for income in the late 1990s. Northern Ireland was bottom then. Since then, Northern Ireland has moved up and Wales has moved down, and we are now bottom of the heap. The NHS is in crisis. Half the health boards in Wales are either in special measures or targeted intervention. Our education results are absolutely appalling. The OECD PISA results were published just a few weeks ago, and both the numeracy and literacy results are dreadful. Fuel poverty. 23% of the households in Wales have to spend more than 10% of their income on heating. 291,000 households. And yet, the Welsh Labour government are enthusiastic supporters of building more windmills subsidised by the pennies of the poor, so that people in the winter have to choose between heating and eating. This is the party that was supposed to have been brought into existence to be the voice of the working people of this country, and yet they are saddling them with millstones around their necks and actually exacerbating poverty. This is the message, of course, we're taking to the people in Stoke. Stoke, in many ways, exhibits the failures of the Labour government in Wales. It is a poor part of England, just as we have poor parts of Wales. And it's only UKIP that is going to be able to lift these deprived and forgotten communities, the communities that have been condescended to, have been ignored by the mainstream politicians who get on the gravy train to Westminster and then do things which are against the interests of the people who send them there. So we now have a leader of the Labour Party who I voted against EU measures with many times in the House of Commons, and yet a party that still can't get to grips with what the British people did last June. They're all in denial, and we see this every single week in the Assembly in Cardiff. We have a leader of the Labour Party in the United Kingdom who thinks that we should model ourselves on Cuba or Venezuela, and the great economic successes that are exhibited there, and he can't even sing the national anthem. And that's exactly what we've got in the leader of Plaid Cymru in Wales, of course, because she can't sing the national anthem either, and was actually kicked out of the Assembly a few years ago for refusing to recognise the Queen as the Queen and insisted on calling her Mrs. Windsor. Now, this is what we're fighting against in the Welsh Assembly. I've got 1 minute to go, I'm told. So what we are doing in the Welsh Assembly is holding the Welsh Government to account, and we're really stirring things up. You know, we are providing a voice for people who previously had no voice in the legislative institutions of Wales. And every week I poke Carwyn Jones, the First Minister, in the eye, and I hope Leanne Wood as well, because they certainly don't, in my view, represent the interests of the people of Wales. And on Brexit, they are both in denial. They can't see this as a massive opportunity for Wales. We're going to get the power, as a result of Brexit, to make an agricultural policy, which is tailor-made to the needs of Wales. We'll take charge of our environmental policy, so we'll be able to decide for ourselves whether we want forests of windmills to desecrate the hills of mid-Wales or the seascapes around our coasts. Plaid Cymru had a debate in the Assembly the other day, which was on a motion to bury all the electricity lines that snake through the hills of Wales on pylons because they're a blot on the landscape. So I asked them, why are you concentrating only on pylons? Why don't we put the windmills underground as well? But humour's not their strong point. I don't think they saw the joke. Because Carwyn Jones, of course, is the private Fraser of the Assembly. We're doomed now that we're leaving the European Union. And Leanne Wood is the Mona Lot, if any of you remember Itmar. It's being so cheerful as keeps me going, she says. But there we are. If I were Leanne Wood, I'd probably be a bit miserable myself. But there we are. Because we have in Wales, and I'm reaching the end of my speech, we have it, and that's just to reassure the chairman, we have in Wales a nationalist party that thinks it's better to be governed by international bureaucrats whom we can't even name, we don't elect and can't dismiss, based in Brussels, than politicians elected by the Welsh people in Cardiff who can be booted out if they don't do what we want. And so fundamentally, both the Labour Party in Wales and Plaid Cymru in Wales are the party that do not believe in democracy. They have no faith in the judgment of the British people and the Welsh people to elect politicians to represent them who are going to do what the people want. And that is why UKIP has a historic opportunity, not only in Wales, but also, of course, throughout the United Kingdom, to restore democracy in its most meaningful form. And with Paul Nuttall as our second Member of Parliament at Westminster, as I profoundly hope he will be after next Thursday, UKIP will be on the road for the next stage of its development when we go on not just to have this magnificent achievement of taking Britain out of the European Union, but also to become the government of the United Kingdom at Westminster and the government of Wales in Cardiff. Thank you.